negotiate with President Trump unless the U.S. shows Iran some respect. That's in quotes. I want to bring in now Senator Tom Cotton, who serves on the Senate Armed Services Committee and is also serving with the U.S. Army in Iraq and Afghanistan in his history. Great to see you today, Senator. First of all, what do we need to know about the Iranian situation right now as the American public?
Harris, thanks for having me on to talk about this important question. There can be no doubt that we've seen serious, credible, and increased reporting of threats from Iran across the Middle East, whether their own forces like the Revolutionary Guard Corps or through their proxies like some of the rebel groups that they support in places like Yemen or paramilitary forces in Iraq. The steps that the administration has taken on the recommendation of the Department of Defense, like moving an aircraft carrier into the Persian Gulf or B-52 bombers into the region, are all prudent steps not to take military action against Iran, but to try to deter military action by Iran.
So, Senator Cotton, are those some of the things that we have done historically? Is this president acting any differently? And if so, what do you think it will accomplish?
There are many historic precedents for this kind of action, Harris, to include against Iran, which really has been waging a kind of low-level war against the United States for 40 years. In 1987 and 1988, for instance, during the Iran-Iraq War, as Iran was threatening the shipment of oil tankers out of the Persian Gulf, President Reagan reflagged those tankers. And when Iran began to attack tankers that were then flagged with the U.S. flag, the United States Navy destroyed the Iranian vessels and weapon systems that Iran was using to attack those tankers. So there's numerous historic precedents for increasing our presence in the Middle East, or for any region for that matter, to try to deter military action by an adversary and retaliate if necessary.
Senator Cotton, is there anything that makes Iran and its threats currently more dangerous to us than back in the 1980s, as you just said, when President Reagan was making some decisions?
Well, we shouldn't forget that Iran is an outlaw regime. It's a revolutionary cause that has hijacked a nation state, especially over the last 10 years. They have gained in power and strength, in particular starting in 2015 with the nuclear deal that gave Iran billions and billions of dollars, sometimes in cold hard cash delivered by the United States itself, but also in economic sanctions relief. That allows them to run wild across the Middle East, funding terror groups like Hamas and Hezbollah and rebel groups trying to overthrow the governments of their neighbors. That has stopped over the last year. Part of what Iran is experiencing right now is a severe recession bordering on a potential depression. The Ayatollahs may be lashing out because we finally have a president who's willing to get tough with Iran rather than appease Iran.
I want to get your response to Senator Blumenthal from across the aisle, who's calling for a public briefing for the American people. Watch.
American people have been frightened unnecessarily, perhaps, by this kind of escalating rhetoric as well as the escalating military movements of assets there, and they deserve answers, real facts. That's what I want in this briefing, but I also want a public briefing for the American people. They deserve facts.
We started with what we need to know. What do you think about what he's saying?
Harris, Iran is the adversary that started the escalation. And there's not a question of intelligence assessments or estimates, Harris. 4 tankers were attacked in the Persian Gulf last week. A Saudi pipeline was attacked. A F-15 repair facility in Saudi Arabia where Americans work was attacked. Those are facts. That's not a matter of dispute. The actions we have taken are not actions preparing for military operations. They're designed to deter Iran from making a grave miscalculation and, if necessary, to retaliate should the Ayatollahs miscalculate in so dramatic a fashion.
I want on this week where we have Armed Forces Day and we have Memorial Day coming up to, first of all, thank you for your service, Senator Tom Cotton. You have written a book called Sacred Duty, A Soldier's Tour at Arlington National Cemetery. And for just a moment, I want to talk with you about why you wrote this book. I understand that you served when you came back at Arlington. What did you do exactly?
Well, thank you, Harris. I did serve at Arlington National Cemetery with the Old Guard, the Army regiment that is tasked with performing military honor funerals in the cemetery, guarding the tomb of the unknown soldier, performing ceremonies around the capital region, some world famous, such as the state funeral for President George H.W. Bush last December. But I performed hundreds of funerals in 2007 and 2008. Unfortunately, funerals for soldiers who had just been killed in Iraq and Afghanistan. Another mission we performed, sadly, was the dignified transfer of remains at Dover Air Force Base, where I had to carry the flag-draped remains of my fallen comrades off an aircraft just hours after they had been killed in Iraq or Afghanistan. The Old Guard is a very special unit, and Arlington is a special place, and the nation expects those young soldiers to give their very best to hold out.
Excuse me one second, because I want to draw everybody's attention to this. That's you on the right in the blue shirt. I don't know if you can see this picture. And your little one, Gabriel, you're at the gravesite of a fallen soldier. Talk to me about the book and this moment, if you can.
Well, Harris, Arlington truly is sacred ground, and I try to take my young children there so they can learn about the sacrifices that our fallen heroes have made for our nation, as I know that so many other families do as well. We're at the gravesite there of Staff Sergeant Adam Dickmeyer. Sergeant Dickmeyer and I served together in the Old Guard, although we didn't know each other at the time. I only met him years later in Section 60 because I noticed that silver emblem at the bottom of his headstone. That's a replica of his tomb badge. Adam Dickmeyer was a tomb sentinel at the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, but he later volunteered for deployment to Afghanistan, where he performed very well, but sadly was killed by a roadside bomb in October of 2010. I try to teach my sons, although they're young, about the sacrifices that our fallen heroes have made, as I know so many other parents do, and as they get older, I hope that they'll continue to accompany me to Arlington and maybe also read Sacred Duty, as I hope all of your your viewers will as well, so they can learn a little bit about what goes into honoring our heroes at Arlington National Cemetery with the Old Guard.
I know you get choked up, I do too. What you did is so important, and you continue to serve at home, and we call you heroes on the home front. Senator Cotton, thank you. We're going to exit now with some pictures and memories of that and your service there at Arlington. The book is Sacred Duty, A Soldier's Tour at Arlington National Cemetery. Senator Tom Cotton, thank you.